Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Coin Lady channel. Attorney Jeremy Hogan is confident if Ripple prevails in their lawsuit against the SEC will not appeal. And he has stated his case for why he holds this view. I'll be honest with you right off the bat, I think the video is pretty damn convincing. Because, like many in the community, I've been keeping in the back of my mind for the last couple of years that even if Ripple wins, it may not really be over because the SEC could sue and maybe never go on to the Supreme Court, which admittedly, technically is possible, but has been weighing on my mind nonetheless. Not even Jeremy Hogan, an attorney, is completely dismissing the possibility. However, I will freely admit that I was. Something that has been worrying me for a while now. I've been wondering why the SEC would just stop reporting altogether. Which Ripple gets the first victory. So, it seems there must be a valid explanation. And I have to say, after hearing Attorney Hogan's argument, I'm convinced. And it has changed the way I've been considering this. And it's not like I've completely given up hope that the SEC will keep at it. Who knows, maybe they'll even file an appeal. However, even Attorney Hogan admits that he isn't always on the ball. Sure, but I find his arguments here to be very convincing. And I believe it will help you feel better, as there is a high probability that there will be some good news for XRP holders here. So there is a chance that Ripple wins, in which case, if Attorney Hogan's right, everything is over there. However, if there is still a path forward for the SEC, we may not have to go through this whole drawn-out thing where we have to go to an appellate-level court and ultimately, to the Supreme Court. However, I will say right off the bat, if that's what it takes, well, I ain't going nowhere. I'm in it for the long haul and won't be a wuss and hide in a corner sobbing while I sell all my XRP in a panic if that's what it takes to get things done. We're fighting back against the SEC, and you can bet that everyone who has any stake in the outcome will do so, because the SEC is wrong and intends to hurt investors. Still, I'm confident that the Ripple effect would prevail in a Supreme Court showdown, given the current composition of the court and the fact that most justices dislike excessive government regulation. But before I go any further, I should make it clear that I have no support of any kind, either financially or legally. Please do not take anything I say as professional advice. Also, you know that you shouldn't act on any of my recommendations to buy or sell. Just a hobbyist here who occasionally posts videos to YouTube on various crypto-related topics. According to the Crypto Basics, the SEC will not appeal if Ripple wins, and the top lawyer has said as much. In this case, Jeremy Hogan is the attorney in question. His image appears on the screen. The text looks like this. If summary judgment is granted in favor of Ripple's, Attorney Hogan explains why the SEC will not appeal. A summary judgment in Ripple versus SEC is anticipated soon. Numerous crypto industry participants have offered their thoughts on what the parties might do if the judge rules against them. Ripple has already stated its intention to appeal Judge Analisa Torres' ruling to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals if the SEC prevails. The SEC's next move, should Ripple prevail, is unknown at this time. And I'll pause to make this point. In addition, I have a quote from Stuart, the Chief Legal Officer at Ripple, that I'd like to share. Already outlines Ripple plans is a quote from an article published on March 13. If the SEC is successful in obtaining a favorable summary judgment. Just one quote left me scratching my head while reading this, but I can guarantee you it won't be forgotten. So, here's what Stuart, already Ripple's top in-house lawyer, had to say about the matter. I would be supremely confident that this is a winner in the Supreme Court, not so much because of crypto issues, but because of the guarding against building an administrative state, quoted. This is in line with what I've been saying and what I would say. To me, it seems like an absolute inevitability that the Supreme Court will tear the SEC to shreds, as Attorney John Dean has been predicting. I have that much faith in it right now, not that it will ever reach that level of certainty here. But again, Ripple has made it clear that if things don't go well with District Court Judge Analisa Torres, they will appeal the case. They will file an appeal, so this is far from over. The SEC has never made any such claims. It's just reasonable to assume, and I've done so too, that they would, though I'm less convinced now than I was at the beginning of the video. We'll get there eventually. But let me expand a bit first. The following paragraphs refer back to the earlier discussion of Attorney Jeremy Hogan's career. Members of the cryptocurrency community have recently debated the SEC's radio silence on the topic. Some proponents of cryptocurrency believe the SEC will appeal a loss in court, while others are less optimistic. One of the people who think the SEC won't appeal is Jeremy Hogan, a partner at the law firm Hogan and Hogan. In a recent interview, attorney Hogan revealed this information to the 3T Warrior Academy. Hogan claims that the SEC will not challenge a ruling from Judge Torres because doing so would be futile. Even if the Second Circuit reverses its earlier decision, he said, the SEC will have set a precedent. Now we're getting to the meat of the matter. Here's a quote from Jeremy Hogan, an attorney, that you should read. If the judge rules in favor of Ripples, I don't see the SEC appealing. Because if the case goes to the Second Circuit, in the appellate court, and the Second Circuit rules against the SEC, now that becomes a binding precedent, quoting me, there is no benefit to the SEC to appeal. What Hogan, the lawyer, is driving at is clear. Even if Ripple prevails in court, the SEC has little to gain from appealing the decision. In this case, attorney Hogan opined that there was no upside. And I'm not sure if he literally means that. Tech is technically, if the SEC were to win, presumably there would be some sort of binding precedent, a precedent rather negative for the world of crypto, but even outside of that, well, then in theory, they would still get, some sort of remedy in theory, and you could talk about disgorgement in this and that. So, I don't know if that lawyer meant that literally, but I do understand the general idea. On the other hand, if you're talking about flipping this, you should know that if it's Ripple loses? If the SEC isn't going to appeal if they lose, it's because they are risking too much, and they have every reason in the world to not do so. That is the main idea. But if you're just a small wave, what have you got to lose? I get that the SEC is taking a big gamble here. If things don't work out, the precedent set here will be binding in all future court cases. All these cases in lower courts, I'm sorry to say. Everything is in peril. You'd be taking a big risk if you did that, but it would set a new standard at that level. So the SEC's plan is to keep attacking the system even though it's risky. I hear what lawyer Hogan is saying. They'd rather not set a binding precedent that could turn out negatively and instead have everything heard at a lower court level in Canada. What exactly is going to occur, by the way? Well, I think that's kind of what attorney Hogan is getting at here, at least with respect to the SEC versus Ripple case. They are not going to a higher court unless they are forced into it. Right. However, he continued, saying that the SEC's ability to win future cases against cryptocurrency firms would be hampered by a negative ruling from the Second Circuit. Another one of Jeremy Hogan's quotes. I'm 90% yes, I think that's what they'll do. Because they don't want to derail their entire plan by enforcing these regulations against the crypto space in quote. When they lose, they won't bother filing an appeal. Honestly, I'd give anything for that to be true. And to be honest, I find that argument very compelling, and I don't know about you guys, but hearing that perspective actually made me feel a bit better, as that is one of the things, and I've been bringing it up occasionally on the channel fairly recently. Merely anxious, all right, so even if we do get a favorable ruling for XRP, do exchanges plan to relist XRP if the SEC files an appeal? If so, when? The asset purchase at the SEC says that the judge got it wrong, so we've got to wait a couple more years. At least, I hope we can avoid that. We're spared any involvement with that. And guarantees God, I pray that's the case, because I'm ready for this ordeal to end already. When you consider that XRP is the only large cap coin on the entire damn planet with legal clarity, you realize that this scenario is not far-fetched at all. In terms of price movement, what implications do you see from that? You tell me I should not assume anything. I don't think it would be a bad thing, though. This is all very intriguing. Now, somebody asked somebody else on Twitter, why do you consider, and you're writing to somebody else? I won't copy the entire thread here, but I will say I don't get why having a YouTube channel automatically makes attorney Jeremy Hogan a top lawyer. And basically, it was in a thread where someone was sharing a story in which attorney Jeremy Hogan was described as a top lawyer, much like how attorney Deaton is frequently described. You run into lawyer Hogan and a few of his colleagues. This article you're reading right now includes that information. What was a fair question, and attorney Hogan responded to a retweet of it. The only lawyers aside from the ones actually involved in the case who have read every word of every pleading, etc. and the SEC versus Ripple case and researched every major issue on me. At the very least, I believe that this makes me a leading attorney in the Ripple case. I'd have to agree with you there. I think the majority of us would agree, but hearing his perspective on it was fascinating. But yeah, of course I agree wholeheartedly with you. However, in response to a question, an additional fascinating point was raised. Throw some good news out, Jeremy, the community is anxious and depressed, someone named Tim wrote to Attorney Hogan at that very moment. The longer it takes to draft a decision, the better it is for Ripple, as Attorney Hogan noted. I can only speculate as to the reasoning behind that. But getting to this point has taken much longer than anyone had hoped. That's encouraging to hear. Perhaps if this was such a no-brainer for the SEC, Judge Torres would have been able to draft, finalize, and release the report much more quickly than they have been able to so far. Perhaps that's the way of thinking about it. I can't say for certain. He should have flushed it down the toilet, but he didn't. What else could it be? But the fact that it's taking so long suggests that she wants to be absolutely certain that everything is in order before proceeding. Okay, I don't know what you guys are thinking, but I need to hear it from you seriously. But I must say that argument convinced me. Before I realized this, my anxiety levels were higher. I find it to be quite intriguing. And while I can't say for sure that it's not true, not as much as Attorney Hogan, then? In any case, I find it very convincing. Judge Torres has provided clarity for secondary transactions of XRP, and secondary markets, so this is good news for Ripple even if they technically were on a few small points. I expect to have a higher level of self-assurance than I otherwise would at that time. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this has already been done, and once again, I'm not a financial advisor. Nothing they say should influence any transactions you make. Right? In the end, please like and subscribe my channel. See you later, bye.